I had the very good fortune of being able to spend break with my family in Japan. It is a fascinating place, especially religiously. Our guide told us 80% of the Japanese people are Shinto, and 80% of the Japanese people are Buddhist, and 90% of Japanese people are atheists. I'm not that great at math, but I was trying to figure that out. She explained, now, Japanese people will go to Shinto shrines for celebrations of life, like baby namings and marriages. But for funerals, they will go to Buddhist temples with their interest in the afterlife and all. And she said that most Japanese will attend both religions' shrines with some regularity, but it's all cultural, not religious. For the new year, many Japanese will visit a Shinto shrine to receive their fortune, also known as an omijuki, which is a practice that dates back to the 14th century. And our guide encouraged us to take part in this custom. So we put our 200 yen into a little donation box, and my oldest son reached into a very big jar filled with folded papers and picked out our collective family fortune for the year. We watched expectantly as Gabriel unfolded the paper, which was about the size of those instructions you get inside a medicine bottle, and with about as many folds. And we probably shouldn't have been surprised, but it was all in Japanese. But there was one little box that had some translation in English. We stopped short when we saw the headline. It read, "Not so good fortune." For this, we paid money. Okay, it went into very specific categories with details. Money, things will improve with time. Illness, if you follow your doctor's order and not exceed your limits, you will get better in the long run. Travel, unfavorable. That was great, we were in Japan. I did get sick, so maybe that was part of it. My husband, the lawyer, was particularly dismayed to see lawsuits. Nearly impossible for you to win. What kind of fortune was that? These omijuki are not fortunes the way we think of them. They literally mean sacred lots. And they vary widely, from small to very big blessings and small and very big curses. Had I known I was essentially buying a lottery ticket, I would have never played. We all know that game is rigged. But these sacred lots reflect a kind of truth about the element of randomness and chance, of blessings and curses in all of our lives. I mean, it is impossible to see the devastating pictures coming out of LA this week and not fear how our lives can just change in an instant. To puzzle over how it is a neighborhood could be entirely burned down, save maybe one house left untouched, a windswept lottery, or grapple with how many of the very biggest things in our lives are so much not in our control. Now, our not so good fortune reminded me of the not so good blessings that Jacob uses this week to bless his sons in this week's Torah portion, Vayechi. As Jacob is near the end of his life, all his sons gather around him, and he has choice words for each one of them. Reuben, my firstborn, unstable as water, you shall excel no longer. For when you mounted your father's bread, you brought disgrace. Shimon and Levi, their weapons were tools of lawlessness. Cursed be their anger so fierce. I will divide them in Jacob, scatter them in Israel. Issachar is a strong-boned ass, crouching among the sheepfolds. You get the idea. These were Jacob's blessings. They are, in some ways, not unlike the Japanese omikuji in that they were not just mere words. They had a particular power and were seen as having efficacy, a link to some kind of divine mandate. They point to a world in which the important things have already been, in some ways, preordained and not fully within our control. Now, today, there are many people who believe that a person's life is already determined by what neighborhood they were born into, what school they attended, by the color of their skin or their IQ score. In ancient times, I might even argue that even more of a person's life was predetermined in advance. Who you married, what work you would do was decided by your parents or your tribe. Whether or not you received blessing, birthright, inheritance, it was all a matter of birth order, gender, and maybe a little bit God's favor. And yet, things did not always go exactly as tradition dictated. Jacob knew this well because he was the younger twin to Esau, who, as the eldest, was set to get the birthright and the blessing of the firstborn. And yet, Jacob and his mother tricked his father Isaac into giving him the birthright instead, and destiny was overturned. And in this week's portion, as Jacob is offering words to all of his children, he blesses his grandchildren, the sons of Joseph, as well. And as he does, he crosses his hands and places the greater blessing on the head of the younger Ephraim instead of the older Manasseh. Joseph, thinking that his blind father had made a mistake, tries to move his hands to the correct son. But Isaac objects, saying, "The younger brother shall be the greater." Even things that feel overly determined are not necessarily so. Individuals still have tremendous agency in shaping the story. I thought about that with my omijuki because this fortune actually left quite a bit of room for us to shape our own world, saying, if, after mistakes and misunderstandings, if you strive for reform and believe in the steadfast spirit, good fortune will be yours at last. It was obviously conditional, but this was not a prophecy. It was an invitation to aspiration. And maybe that is also the case here with Jacob's blessings. When you actually examine what he says to his sons, his words sound more descriptive than prophetic. You are unstable as water. Your anger is fierce. Maybe we shouldn't hear these words as blessing or even as a curse, but as an invitation. Perhaps Jacob is holding up a mirror to their actions, to who he sees them as, to encourage them to change. Jacob's final blessing to his sons might have been to tell them the truth. This is who I have known you to be. Now, who do you want to be? Each one of us still has the power to shape the end of the story.